Hey, what's up guys, Sir Emanon here, and welcome to episode 6 of Cheap Competitive Contenders, the series where I take a look at a budget deck of under $100 and try and put it up into the metagame. So this time it's going to be featuring Gouki, which is a very popular deck for you guys, because obviously I've been posting quite a bit of content on it, especially last month. But yeah, this deck definitely did win the community tab poll. It was by a bit of a narrow margin, but yeah, this is, of course, if you guys are unfamiliar, how I decide which decks are featured on the episodes of this series. So if you don't want to miss out on having your say in future episodes, be sure to just be on the lookout for that. I use the feature, or the poll feature rather, quite frequently in general, just to, get a sense of what you guys are thinking and, just get a way to get feedback from you guys. I really do enjoy having that interaction with all of you. So if you guys want to directly have some say in the content that I produce, that's probably the best direct way to do so for the time being. But carrying on here, Gouki is a very cool deck because its engine is just naturally very recursive, and rematch is just a really nice bomb card to have access to. And its combo for the extra deck doesn't actually require that much space, so you have a lot of room for a variety of different utility cards, which I really appreciate in terms of just having follow-up plays or going second. And you'll notice that, of course, this list is not featuring Dragoon, because Dragoon is definitely outside of the budget. So we are working with other cards to try and sort of supplement that. Granted, one of the biggest strengths of Gouki, I feel, is that if you do get disrupted, then Dragoon is a pretty decent fallback option. But nonetheless, there are still definitely ways to make the deck work, and I think that you guys can try something like this if you are trying to play the deck on a budget. So on the screen for you guys right now will be the price breakdown, and you can find a link in the description to the Google Sheet, which will have more specific details, as well as just time accurate sort of price calculators online, as well as the DB download file. So if you want to find all of that, be sure to check that out in the description box down below. And yeah, this is a pretty interesting kind of price breakdown, because you can see that the extra deck is going to be taking up the majority of the price here. Part of that is because I wanted to fit things in the extra deck, in particular like Appaloosa, Unicorn, and even Union Carrier are kind of up there. So that's going to be a lot of where the price is saturated. But apart from that, I think a lot of this extra deck, apart from the big expensive heavy hitters like Access Code, Borosword, and obviously Dragoon, this still has quite a lot of the toolbox options that you can come to expect from Gouki, with admirable, I feel, replacements for the very mainstream options that you might not have access to on a budget. So yeah, as per usual, if you guys do want to purchase any of the cards in this video or in this deck list, feel free to use the TCG Player affiliate link that I have down in the description box down below. Again, this is the only series where I feel like I can comfortably actually, plug that link, because none of my other content is really relevant to that. But if you guys would like to support the channel at no additional cost to you guys, and just help out in any way that you can, that is one of the best ways to do so. But of course, just watching the videos and liking the videos is good enough for me in a lot of cases. So we're gonna go ahead and just get started here. Again, I'm not going to really run through the heavy in-depth details of the Gouki deck, or just any of the decks in this series. It's not usually what the main focus of this is. The focus is just the gameplay and seeing how it does against other decks. But there is no shortage of Gouki content on my channel, luckily for you guys. So if you want to look at a variety of videos, then be sure to check them out. I'll probably have cards in the video, as well as links in the description if you want more resources on this deck. But we're just going to go ahead and carry on here. So first up, we got 3 Super X, 2 Twist Cobra, 2 Headbat, 2 Guts, and 2 Octo Stretch for the Goukis. 11 Goukis plus the Rhoda, so it's, I guess, technically 12. Mathematically, in a 40 card list, this is pretty good for consistency. Super X is, of course, the best one. Guts and Octo are actually really good to open, because being level 1 allows you to be flexible with Link Reba plays if you get hand trapped. And opening Headbat is actually not that bad, because you can still combo with it. And if you guys want to know how to combo with this deck, granted a lot of those would feature Dragoon, but you can replace Dragoon with the Union Carrier play, which I'll get to in a bit. Well, it's really just Union Carrier for Buster Lock. There's not really a whole lot to say about it, but you can replace the Rarity Anaconda with this, and it's basically the same for a lot of the combos, at least in terms of when you don't get hand trapped. But yeah, Headbat is still fine. If you want to check out the combo video that I have, I'll have a link to that as well for you guys. So for the extenders, we got 3 Fireflint Lady, 2 Junk Forward, 1 Blue Mountain Butter Spy, and I guess we could talk about the Hornet Drones as well. So yeah, these are like just all ways you can extend besides, you know, just having your Goukis, because most of these don't require your normal summon. Like none of these actually do, unless if you open like multiples, like multiple forwards, for example, or like forward plus Hornet Drones. Hornet Drones is an interesting one. I usually prefer stuff like a Red Layer over it, but Red Layer plus Durendal is a little bit on the more expensive side as far as like in context of what this budget is. So I decided Hornet Drones was serviceable, and like you don't really run into that conflict that much anyway, where you like draw like just forward and Hornet Drones and no Goukis whatsoever. That usually doesn't come up, so shouldn't be that much of an issue. Fireflint's obviously very good, and Butterspy, if you only play one, then you don't have to worry about drawing multiples, and it'll work in every single hand that you draw it. So I really do like just as a one of. And for the PKs, we have Cloak and Boots. Not much to say, it's just part of the Rusty package. Then we got Hand Traps, 3 DD Crow, and 3 Veiler. So a little while ago, I was kind of drafting an early version of this budget list, and I was playing Ghost Ogre. But for one, Ogre is surprisingly like triple the price of Crow right now, which still only amounts to $3 per copy, but you have to keep in mind that when you're looking at a budget list where every penny matters, that does actually become very relevant. But also Crow is nice because Dino is very, very, very popular at the moment and got even more popular after it won the most recent LCS. So just being able to hit Miscellaneous Source out of Graveyard is very nice. It's one of the few hand traps that actually interacts with that deck. And it's also decent against like the big fiber combo decks that utilize Martial Metal Marcher. It's like not the best because you want to hand trap them earlier ideally, but I mean it is what it is, right? It's like it still has its merit and utility. You know, if we're not playing the big heavy hitters like Nibiru, then we kind of just got to make do with what we got. Same deal with Veiler. It's just like a wide coverage hand trap. And Ashe, once again, eludes itself from the list by virtue of somehow just being way too expensive. I really thought Gouki would be the deck that I could play Ashe in. And to be fair, like I mentioned, I wanted to play a lot of the more expensive extra deck options. And also, to be fair, I'm sure many of you guys do already own Ashe, but you know, just in the cases where you are trying to build this from scratch, which is kind of the entire concept of this series, yeah, Ashe is not a part of this list. So I feel like if Ashe is not going to make it into Gouki out of all decks, then it's probably just not going to make it into any deck in the future on this series until it gets a reprint that actually finally knocks its price down. But we got also for one-ofs, Dragon Buster, Destruction Sword, as well as Codebreaker Zero Day. These are cards you don't want to draw, but I mean, they're fine. They don't hinder you as long as you can still combo. Then we got Rhoda, I already mentioned the Hornet Drones, Monster Reborn, 3 Eagle Booster. I really like this card as just a way to be able to protect yourself against hand traps. It's just very, very universal because your main choke point is Isolt, so every hand trap's going to be thrown at it, and this pretty much answers most of them. So that's very, very nice there. 2 Rematch, Living Fossil, and Phoenix Blade, as well as Shade Brigandine, and 2 Fogblade for the PK traps. You could bump up Shade Brigandine if you wanted to, just to have, you know, more extension. But if you need to, for some reason, access this, like they say you draw like Ancient Cloak, and you just need another extender, but like you started off with another copy of Shade Brigandine, then it kind of like makes things a little bit awkward, so I have to just keep with one. And then for the extra deck, we got some interesting cards in here. So we got Avermax as a way to kind of apply a lot of pressure. A lot of decks actually don't have great outs to this. It kind of like fulfills the role of Dragoon in terms of its protection, while also fulfilling the role of like Boral Sword in terms of having a lot of offense. So, you know, it's obviously not a perfect replacement, but it is pretty nice. It also is pretty decent in comboing with Appaloosa because then they can't just attack over it. So that's also a nice thing. We got Gouki the Power Load Ogre, which is another additional option to have 3 downward pointing arrows to facilitate Codebreaker plays, while also just being, you know, really hard for decks to deal with. It's another like kind of boss monster Towers-esque card, but it can also pop cards, which is really, really useful. It just can pop 4 out of nowhere, so that's really, really nice to have access to. Appaloosa, pretty obvious. Codebreaker, Virus Berserker, part of the combo, as well as obviously the Virus Swordsman. Those two go hand in hand. We got Ningirsu, which is really cool because this deck obviously is very Link-centric, and you have access to Link Kuriboh a lot of the time, so you can like easily turn any Link 2 plus Link Kuriboh into this card, and then like add back Phoenix Blade, set it, and then send anything. And then this is a warrior, so it can turn into Power Load Ogre because this doesn't require Goukis, it just requires warriors. So that's a really cool kind of ladder you can go up to. You can go like Phoenix, then Ningirsu, then Power Load, and that's like a really, really efficient way to just get rid of resources and close the game. Unicorn, which is nice, obviously. I was playing without this card for a while, and then I just kept missing it. So I was like, you know, I'm throwing this card in no matter what. I will do whatever it takes to put this card into the extra deck. So ended up putting it in. If for some reason there are games where I don't have, or I don't make this card, that's kind of why. And then we have Rusty. Virus Swordsman I already mentioned, Phoenix, 2 copies of Isolde, Cerberus, Union Carrier for the Buster Lock. You can also, on follow-up turns, by the way, equip Goukis to like random warriors and then link them away, and then those Goukis will still trigger, which is cool. And we got a B Cop from the Underworld, which is just a generic link 2 for when you get new B-Rude. You want to turn the token and 1 Gouki into this, and then turn the level 1 Gouki into the Link Rebo to be able to make a Rusty, which is pretty cool. And then for the side deck, we got Gamma and Driver, Pankratops, Redoer, and Dweller. Honestly, like these are kind of just throwaway spots. You can play whatever you really wanted to. I just figured like if you want to have more rank 4 options for like your going first board, then these are some things that you could play. The third rematch, which I would recommend playing if you run into a lot of like slower matchups where you need to grind a lot, having a third rematch really does come in handy there. 3 Cosmic, 3 Twin, and Reboot for backward decks. This is pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, with that out of the way, that took a little bit longer than usual, but we're just going to go ahead and jump into the games here. Alrighty guys, so for our first match, we're going to be playing against Gren Maju, and this is like a very standard Gren Maju kind of list. You see trade-ins, and there's going to be dangers, you see Allure of Darkness, so like a lot of just deep draw, just ways to try and find board breakers, go second, and OZK, nothing too crazy. And then our hand is pretty decent, but you'll notice we have a bit of a problem in terms of us drawing both of our equip spells. Very low chance of that happening, but it can happen. But if your hand's good enough like this, which is Gouki plus Super X, then you are able to kind of just play past that. So we're going to use Rhoda to grab Octastretch, and then normal the Super X to grab out Octastretch, and then go into Isolde and grab triple searches. Of course, our second effect of Isolde is not going to be live, so it makes the Eagle Booster a little bit worse in this case, but we can still just go ahead and Fossil, or Living Fossil back one of the Goukis, and then use Headbat. So basically it's as if nothing really happened, so that's pretty nice. Going to Appaloosa here, we can trigger off Headbat to grab ourselves a copy of Super X for next turn, and then we can rematch back and go for the Virus Swordsman play. So this is like a pretty standard Gouki stuff, up until of course we deviate a little bit by going into Rusty. And then instead of going for Virtu Anaconda, we're of course just going to make our copy of Union Carrier to equip our Buster Lock to the Rusty, and then we're going to end on double Fall Blade as well. So yeah, setting the Phoenix Blade is also kind of dumb. You want this in hand so you can like pitch it and then add it back for like nightmares and stuff. So yeah, I would not recommend setting this here, but I mean, it's not like the worst thing. But yeah, moving on, our opponent does have double Super Poly and a Kaiju, so they're gonna Kaiju our Rusty, which had the Buster Lock on it. So that was a little scary, but then I noticed that my opponent didn't really have that much. They're gonna Allure, which was actually a blind Allure. I didn't even know about this, obviously, because I didn't really watch through these replays beforehand. Obviously, I was playing the games, but I didn't know what my opponents had. But they're gonna draw into a Thunderbird and then just pass on a set Gren. I really didn't know what his sets were. I thought they were Super Polys, but he actually just chose to keep the Super Polys in hand, which is interesting. I wonder what his targets are. Starving Venom, the one with the preferred planet that requires 3 darks, the zombie one. Yeah, so there is Mud Dragon, which could come up potentially, and also Earth Golem could possibly come up. But yeah, I think you definitely should just set one of the Super Polys. But yeah, this is what I was talking about before, where you can just equip random Goukis to other Goukis with the Union Carrier. But here I'm just trying to like pop through the rest of the board, and not having this Phoenix Blade kind of makes things a little less free there, which is a little unfortunate, but it's not really the end of the world. Here I have Ningirsu, and I just decided to try and send away the other back row, and then because my Rusty went to grave, I decided to actually not send the Phoenix Blade, but I send the Fog Blade instead, so I can bring back the Rusty, which is nice. And then here we have just enough damage to attack for game. And yeah, I'm just like making sure that I have like enough to attack over like a set hand trap if it happened to be that, but it wasn't that. It was just Gren Maju with only 1 banished card, so we easily take away this game. Then moving on to game number 2 here, we see our opponent has a lot more like offensive cards rather than like the draw cards, so able to maybe like have the resources to push past our board. They chose to make us go first, of course, unsurprisingly. Super X for Super X is not ideal, but at the very least it makes it so that if you have another extender with it, you can play past Isolde getting hand trapped because you have the Gouki name for Headbat to fire, so that's not too bad there. Go ahead and fire off the Isolde. My opponent isn't playing hand traps, it seems, so we're able to just kind of pop off again. And here we're just going to go through the standard Gouki line, very, very, unsurprising here. I do keep a level 4 on the board here, because I think in this list I was still like maining the Dweller, because I was like testing random iterations of the deck, but fundamentally the list is the same. It's just what comes down to the extra deck utility spots, and that typically does not change very often. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and go for pretty much the same board. We just have a leftover Gouki, which allows us more follow-up on the next turn, and that's also really nice. Our opponent draws another danger for turn. They're going to fire off a Bigfoot, sniping a Thunderbird. I decided to just go ahead and use Appaloosa on this Thunderbird because he can just attack at any time, and I like don't want to waste a Fog Blade on it. Like I could, but I might as well get the value out of Appaloosa, right? Like if it's going to be threatened by battle anyway. So we do that. Ogopogo hits the Gizmek, and then he's going to fire off a Lure to get rid of the other Gizmek and draw Desires, which he's going to use to draw a Kaiju, which he's actually going to trade in, which I guess is understandable because there's no Super Poly, so like there's nothing really worth Kaijuing. I guess you could Kaiju the Appaloosa if you wanted to, but just beat over it, right? I just want more cards to be able to like threaten the board. So Traden's going to grab access to like the Eater of Millions and the Gren Maju. He's going to banish for Gizmek, and I'm going to Appaloosa that. Kind of similar logic, right? Might as well get mileage out of it while I still can. Response team is going to bounce the Rusty, which I found him to be pretty interesting. Just because like the Buster Lock isn't really hurting him that much here. But yeah, he's going to go ahead and pitch the Bigfoot that he just bounced for the grave effect of the response team to draw another Bigfoot, and then to force Appaloosa's final negation. And from here, he's going to go ahead and summon a bunch of big dudes. And then go into Phoenix, which of course I'm going to Fog Blade, but I still have one more Fog Blade left for this Gren Maju. So yeah, that is not getting in for damage here. I was going to set double Imperm to try and turn off the Fog Blades and just pass back to me. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and use Union Carrier. He chooses to let that go, probably not like realizing that you can equip Goukis. And I'm going to Rhoda for another Extender here. I'm just going to try and break the board. We have Phoenix, and as well as Gouki's firing. He's going to Imperm, which turns off the Fog Blade that is affecting the Gren Maju, so now I have to deal with that as well for this turn. Because if I don't deal with it, then he's just going to go ahead and attack. Or actually, it's going to be still Fog Bladed. Never mind, I don't know what I'm saying. I don't have to actually deal with it, but I want to be able to end the game, right? Because I can't attack it. That's more along the lines of what I was thinking. But go ahead and just, send the Fog Blade that's attached to the Phoenix there. That way I can attack the Phoenix. And here I mess up a little bit in terms of going for game. Definitely could have gone for game here. But, or wait, did I have game? Oh, no, I did have game. That's right, because I have Twist Cobra. Yeah, so never mind. Yep, we had it here. So that is a pretty decent showing of just what the deck is able to do. Even when the Buster Lock is not that good against this deck, obviously. But the recursiveness of how the Goukis just inherently function is why the deck is, in my opinion, very, very fun to play. So we're just going to move on to the next match in just a sec here. Alright, match number 2 here is going to be up against Salamangreat, but this is not normal Salamangreat. This guy is playing Dragoon and the Buster Lock, I'm pretty sure. And making a lot of Super Poly targets. This guy is not even playing Heatleo. So, yeah. Take the rat as you will. It is a Edda Pro. You'll find a lot of interesting things. But our opponent is going first, and we don't have any hand traps, so we aren't able to actually interact. So they're going to start off with Flame Buffalo, and they're going to pitch the Parallel Exceed. And you can see they drew the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, which they'll pitch for a Mining to grab Gazelle. They're going to go ahead and Will for Gazelle. They do a very, very weird line of play. No, this line of play wasn't like as weird, but later on it was like a very weird line of play in the later games. But yeah, Roar, Imperm, Rage, just like still nothing to sneeze at. It's still a meaningful disruption, and the problem is that my opponent uses disruptions at very, very, in my opinion, poor times, but ends up working out. So yeah, he Imperms the Super X, which is fine. It is kind of like assuming I don't have any other extenders, but like that's like okay. But then he actually roars a Shade Brigandine, which I'm like, dude, like in most cases this is not very good, because obviously if I have like Fireflint Lady or anything else, I just go into Izzle. So like this is just like, you know, you never see anyone roaring a Shea Brigandine except on Edo Pro, but you know, I guess that's what people do here. But unfortunately, with my particular hand, that actually is enough to stop my turn, which definitely sucks. My opponent goes to use Wolf, and I try and Flaw Blade it, and then he's going to respond with Rage. So that is definitely just the end of the game here. Because no matter how poorly my opponent uses interruptions, he has enough resources to just out-resource me, and he's playing Dragoon too. So, you know, that is definitely something that I won't be able to contend with at this point in the game. So, yeah, we're just going to take a lot of damage. Probably could have just gamed me there, to be honest, but he just wanted to summon Dragoon, I suppose. And we draw Phoenix Blade, and that's just not going to be it. So, we decided to just pack it up here. Alright, so game 2 here, like now that I saw this guy's build and the way he plays, I'm like determined to win, because I'm like, I feel like this guy should not be rewarded for playing like this, in my personal opinion. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get started here. So we're going first this time. We drew the Dragon Buster again, which is like really unfortunate, but happens. When my opponent imperms the first effective Isolde, I'm like, I can also just make a second one and then save the Eagle Booster if he has like an Ash or something, like a Gamma. So I'm like, you know what, that's fine. I'm not going to Eagle Booster that. We're just going to go ahead and summon Fire Flint, go into a second Isolde, and use this effect anyway. And then, even though, you know, I could have just used the Eagle Booster and saved the Fire Flint Lady, ultimately, you know, if my opponent had another hand trap, this would have been the correct play. So I think this was the right choice. We're going to just go ahead and, you know, resolve our full Gouki combo now. My opponent doesn't have any other disruptions, so it is pretty clear where this is going. This is going to be the Curve Breaker stuff, as well as Rescue. And this is a deck where the Dragon Buster definitely matters a bit more. They have outs to it with like Rage and Foxy as well, but you know, this is still pretty decent. If they can't out it immediately, then you can just use your Goukis to push. So my opponent is going to draw a Foxy for turn, Speak of the Devil. So they actually can out this, if not for Appaloosa, of course. Like in theory, they had Foxy plus a circle, so like they could, like, I don't know, Crash and main phase 2 try to like out the board. We're gonna start with Desires and then Chain Circle, and you'll notice my opponent banished the Gazelle off the Desires. So you know, that's take for that what you will. Draws Desires and Ash off of that. My opponent is going to use a Foxy Field effect, and I'm like, I might as well just negate that with Appaloosa. And my opponent can't do anything beyond that because, you know, they're under Buster Lock. So, yep, that's it for game 2. Alright, so for game 3 here, we don't have hand traps again, and we don't have any Goukis either, but we do at least have Go second card, which should be decent. But of course, our opponent opened insanely broken, so, you know, it is what it is. Our opponent is going to Buffalo and do it in, you know, the wrong chain link there. Should be Buffalo chain link 1. But yeah, he's going to get rid of the Gazelle, which I guess is fair because he has Will anyways. Yeah, this is the game where he makes a very weird line. So he like brings back Spinny and then goes to Wolf and then like wills back the Gazelle. Like, he does this like in like I think just the wrong order. But, you know, he's not even going to end up with Gazelle back in hand, which I find to be pretty funny. But he's going to give everything up to make Verte Anaconda for Dragoon. Like, I don't know. Like, might as well just play a different deck, right? it's just so weird to me. But anyways, we are actually able to contend with the board reasonably well here. We finally did draw a Gouki, which is nice. So we're going to Pankratops this Shotgun on the back row, because I want to see if, you know, he bites with Dragoon, because I'm like, if he does, then that's like the biggest disruption out of the way, because I know there's no Roar. Rage is like only going to pop 1 max, so like the only real sets could be like Imperms, right? So I'm like, if that Dragoon gets negated, that or uses its negation, then that's like totally fine, right? Yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and summon our Extenders as well as our Suprix. Imperm is the first effect of Isolde. I'm like, okay, that's cool. We're just going to go ahead and Fire Flint Lady to get the Twist Cobra onto the board. Just so we have like more ways to get access to rematch if we need to. Because I'm expecting that that's another Imperm. So, yeah, if he negates that, I'm like, okay, cool, I can rematch and then just like set up. But he doesn't Imperm the second effect, he Imperms the first. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, this is what you get sometimes with Edo Pro. Normally I'm like not this harsh against my opponents, but I don't know, man. This is just highly questionable. We're gonna carry on here. We have Reborn, and we can just Phoenix just force the issue, because I'm like, yeah, I want this Imperm out of the way so I can make my actual pushes, and then he Imperms his old now, and I'm like, okay, I guess. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and add a Fob Blade just in case there's future turns. I probably could have pushed harder with a Shade Brigandine, honestly, but I just wanted to play it safe. But yeah, here we have like our full line, and this is where you get to see some of the utility of the extra deck going second. You saw the Virus Berserker actually able to pop the Will, which he... Oh, he didn't have a Balinx Engrave. Okay, never mind. I guess he Jaguar returned it. Alright, you know what? Not going to question at this point. There's not really any point in going to the PK stuff at this point, because I actually think I cited out parts of the engine going second, and I already went through Fall Blade Boots. So it's like, it didn't really matter that much. I would rather go for this line, just go for an Ingirsu, and go for the Power Wood Ogre like I mentioned. So between that, as well as Appaloosa and Fall Blade, I'm like, my opponent's probably not going to out this because they just didn't add Gazelle back to hand. So I'm like, I'm not really fearing too much actually. You drew Imperm and could have Impermed the Appaloosa, but chooses not to. Yeah, you can't really make this up, huh? Yeah, everything is just going to get negated by Appaloosa, and then that's pretty much it, because I just can't do anything else, because he just didn't. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes your opponents just don't play ideally, but we're just going to go ahead and hack for game here. Alright, and then for our final match here, we're going to be playing against Dragon Link. You know, just, you got to play against it, or got to play against like some tier 1, right? So yeah, our hand is pretty decent. We do have Crow, which is like a weak hand trap, but we are going first, so that's you know, good enough, right? So we're just gonna pretty much combo, and we are able to combo through Imperm because we have Eagle Booster, and that is one of the best things about it, and that's why I like it so much. That you're just able to, you know, bypass stuff like Ash, Imperm, Gamma, even, and just not even have an issue. So yeah, this is basically a full combo because our opponent didn't open up any of their hand traps. So we are pretty much good to go here. And Dragon Link just doesn't really have outs to the Buster Lock. At least not very easily. Like, they would have to go for like a way to attack over Rusty, which could be like a way to like kill Rusty, which is hard to do with like without Levianeer, or without like, I don't know, Red MD with like Black Metal Dragon boost. But I mean, you always have the negations to back it up. And Fob Blade as well. Oh yeah, something to note there is that because I drew Cloak, I had to get Shade Brigandine at some point, so I only ended in one Fob Blade. Something to note there. I figure Chaos Space is fine, but I'm just going to go ahead and DD Crow the Grave Effect just so that there's no other outs. Because like, I don't really mind the Swiver Burster being here, like, that's fine. He's going to save it to send to. I was like, oh, that's probably just going to try and fish for Levianeer, so I'm like, nah. And then at this point, my opponent just decides to scoop it up, go to game 2. Yeah, so game 2 here, we are going second this time, and we did open a hand trap, but it's a weaker one. We, of course, are siding Gamma, but we didn't open it. That's kind of how things are. Our hand, even if we were going first, is pretty weak. So, you know, don't really feel too bad about this one. An opponent's hand is obviously strong enough to play through just a singular Veiler. Just a lot of ways to extend. So this is pretty much just going to be game over after we try and Veiler the Romulus, and then they have a double quick launch in hand. So that's obviously not going to really matter too much. Yeah, so we're just going to like let them combo a bit. It eventually comes to a point where my opponent actually misclicks and accidentally uses the Protector Whelp effect on summon. And then in chat, we were just talking, and I'm like, yeah, you got this game anyway, you know. For the sake of the videos, like, I effectively did lose the game. So I'm not going to like... But yeah, like here, accidentally activated the effect. But like, yeah, I'll just go ahead and scoop here. Just because, like, in a realistic sense, nobody's actually going to activate this. It was just a misclick. So, yeah, I mean, obviously in that case where this game actually plays out, we lost it. So we're just going to take our loss like a champ and then move to game 3. Alright, so game number 3 here. Our hand is looking pretty good. We have 2 hand traps actually. And our opponent did open Droll. But this is actually one of the hands I can play through, because if you have Suprix plus Gouki, then you're in a good spot just in general, but having Extender on top of that is also just very, very nice. Just helps to play around hand traps. Yeah, here what I could have done was summon the Fire Flint Lady and then like kept the I could have like kept one of the Goukis on board so I can have like Headbat live, but I don't know, I just wanted like all 3 searches, I guess, which ends up working out coincidentally as he had Drill. Yeah, it's a play that I probably should think about like more consistently, like what play is better to do. But I mean, like this was played a little while back when Joel was like a lot more popular, so I think it was like just sitting in the back of my mind that like, oh, you know, people could be playing Joel still. So it's a big possibility. So here is where you deviate a little bit, because obviously if you go for Rusty, you can't like search with the PK monsters, right? So you have to be a little bit creative here. I go ahead and make the Rusty anyway, just so that I can get the Cloak Engrave. That way next turn I can have Boots, and then just summon it for free. But I decided to actually just go for the Buster Lock without any Fall Blades, because I'm like, I have Valor, DD Crow. I was like, fine. Like the Joe did end up mattering there, of course, because like you don't have any Fall Blades at this point. You could also argue like, oh, why don't you just use the Guts and have like 1 Fall Blade set? Well, the thing is, like, I really want to follow up, and I really just want to make sure I had a Gouki left on the board, because this way I make sure that I have rematch so I can close the game out. But yeah, I feel decently comfortable in this kind of position here. My opponent goes and like crashes. I'm like, that's fine. And I'm like, oh, maybe, yeah. I negated this, which is kind of like questionable, I guess. But it didn't really matter too much, because like as long as you can protect your Dragon Buster lock, then it's like okay. Because like Red MD can technically be an out to it, but like not this turn because he already went battle phase. But yeah, I go ahead and Crow when he goes to use World Cigar Dragon, and that's pretty much the end of the game. There's just nothing else you can do. So that is kind of how you play a combo against Dragon Link. You kind of just hope things work out and that you win the die roll. We're going to go back and talk about the deck a bit more. Alright, so just some closing remarks here. I think that Dragoon is generally like a very solid option if you can have access to it, but if you don't, then this is like a pretty nice, decent backup. Which is funny because like I consider Dragoon to be the backup in a lot of the cases in this deck, but it's like a backup to the backup, I suppose. But yeah, if you're able to like incorporate other cards in the extra deck, or like even the main deck if you want to play other hand traps, you're obviously more than welcome to do so. Like this is just a list strictly speaking to be confined to the budget constraints I set for myself. But again, like it's very, very mutable. You can change whatever you wish to. And this is just sort of a template, a guideline, and sort of what the deck looks like in action if you are to play this exact list or variants of this list. Because again, I did make some minor adjustments like to the extra deck and such. But yeah, overall, I think the deck is still in a pretty decent spot. It's not one of the front runners, to be sure. It just doesn't have the ability to make as powerful boards and like play through as much like ridiculousness as the current decks, or the current best decks rather. But I think it is still a very, very solid option for you budget and or rogue players out there. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like with those any thoughts or feedback in the comment section down below. Feel free to subscribe for more informative and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. If you want to, you can follow me on Discord, Twitter, or Twitch. All 3 links in the description as always. And once again, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. See you guys.